Go. Now, other interesting cultural news, you have Libs of TikTok trans shooter ratio going viral. Now, this comes to us thanks to one of the most popular profiles on X Twitter. And I apologize, I do forget her name, the individual behind the account who created it, but she is extremely viral and well known. It's one of the top profiles over, I think it's over 2 million followers on the X Twitter. And earlier this week, she actually released some statistics, and it went viral, as youth might say. Now, Lives at TikTok specifically says, quote, Colorado Springs shooter, non-binary. Nashville school shooter, trans. Aberdeen school, trans. Denver school shooter, trans. Iowa school shooter, transgender fluid. Lakewood church shooter, trans. The modern LGBTQ plus movement is radicalizing our youth into becoming violent extremists, unquote. And as youth might say, this went viral to say the least. They got 3.4 million views in the first 24 hours, as well as 52,000 likes, which is quite a few likes to say the least. Now, let's see here. Going down to some of the top comments, you have Paul DeZupa says, quote, these facts are not convenient for the far left's narratives. They simply ignore them. That's what they do. Radicalizing youth into violent extremists is part of the left's agenda. They want society living in fear so that we're dependent on them, unquote. And that got 355 likes. Mr. Random Libs says, quote, do you realize if Democrats stop shooting people, gun violence would drop by 90%, unquote? I got 934 likes, and is accompanied by a picture compilation of the mass shooters throughout the past probably 15 years. Let's see, and that would actually be a fascinating thing. I don't know how many times people look into like their voting patterns or their voter if they're registered as a Democrat or a Republican. But I'm actually surprised that's not a use case, or that's not like someone hasn't dove in, because again, they're telling us 90%, but that would be kind of interesting to see the statistical breakdown of all of those top incidents with those folks and where they aligned, and maybe there's a pattern. Now, going down, you see Sassafras 84 says, quote, the Democrats would rather chop off their genitals. Oh, wait. Again, I am by no means a speaking connoisseur. However, I do have a theory. If you click the subscribe button, it may very well help with my speaking ineptitudes. When I first started the show, believe it or not, a lot more speaking ineptitudes, stumbling my words, speaking too fast. Well, granted, problems are still here, of course. But since we've gained more and more subscribers, there's been a modicum of improvement. Not a lot, but I would argue a modicum of improvement. So if you click that button again, I would greatly appreciate it as I attempt to reread this quote. Again, so in Sassafras 84, she says, quote, the Democrats would rather chop off their genitals and give them guns rather than give them medicine and seeking mental health. Democrats are the problem in America. Unquote, getting 284 likes. Let's see. Liz Wheeler says, quote, this is exactly what queer theory was intended to do. It's a violent Marxist revolutionary ideology that abuses mentally ill youth into believing they are so oppressed that their only recourse is to kill their oppressors. If that sounds extreme, it's because it is. Unquote, getting 1.3 thousand likes. It's quite many to say the least. Libercrat Media TM says, quote, exactly, is the Photoshop of The Simpsons where they have that issue where Lenny is pulling down the number where at a factory it'll say X days without violence, and Lenny's about to put a 0, or he's replacing the 0 with a 1, or vice versa. He's replacing the 1 with the 0, but they photoshopped the picture, or they photoshopped the billboard, so instead of saying days without factory safety incidents, it's day without trans violence. I got 378 likes. Philip Anderson says, quote, Joe Biden supporters are mass shooters, unquote, 166 likes. First Words says, quote, has the FBI declared our most serious domestic threat yet, unquote, 192 likes. Actually, no, the U.S. government told us that the biggest threat, or was that directly the Biden administration? They said the biggest threat to our country is white supremacists. That's what we're told. Haven't seen that in the headlines, or haven't seen a lot of those incidents, but that's what we're told. Nick Frieda says, quote, I can't help but think the push on college campuses to characterize speech as violence was not so much about shutting people up as it was about creating a false moral justification to use physical violence against others in the name of, quote, self-defense, unquote. And that got 350 likes, and I can't help but think there probably is there's probably a little bit of truth in that statement, because again, it's one of those instances where I can't help but see a big red flag. Well, perhaps not, but I'll take the metaphor. When you have students protesting someone like Ben Shapiro going to a college campus to speak, claiming that he's violent, claiming that Ben Shapiro is a Nazi, who, spoiler alert, he's an Orthodox Jewish man with very dedicated to his family, yet they all portrayed him as evil. The students would protest, and they would actually try to stop him from speaking. In some cases, getting violent. I can't help but think this last quote or last comment might have a little more truth than we'd like to admit. Let's see here. So Merrick Garland press office parody account says, quote, looks like it's time to update the list again. And it says COS shooter identified as non-binary, Denver shooter identified as trans, Aberdeen shooter, Nashville shooter, let's see here, Philly shooter identified as cross-dresser, and then Perry shooter identified as TBA. That got 240 likes. Here we go. Get some contrarian statements, or getting a little bit more diversity in the comments here. Just Huggy says, quote, Allen, Texas, 2023, white supremacist. 2022, Colorado Springs, white supremacist. 2022, Buffalo, white supremacist. This guy didn't go in chronological order. That's a little pet peeve of mine. But nevertheless, 2023, Jacksonville, white supremacist. 2018, Parkland shooter, white male. 2017, Las Vegas, white male. Which again, it's interesting he's pulling race. I guess we shouldn't be too surprised that he is pulling race into this issue, but again, that's not the main topic that everyone's going about. And he goes on for 10 to 15 more talking about the race of the people who are committing the crimes, which again, I'll personally think it has anything to do with race. It's all about culture, mental health, but that did get 576 likes, so a lot of people did agree with that specific response. Now, going down to a couple more, Tony Kinnett says, quote, oh, look, it's the consequence of telling an entire generation that LGBTQ plus people are facing genocide by, quote, white Christian nationalists, unquote. They got 643 likes. Let's see here. A lot of people reposting the picture of the shooters with their orientation. Got any more comments here? Planet Meme says, quote, yet you will be the blame as being an extremist for simply exposing them, unquote, gaining 88 likes, which another concerning thing is, another thing we see trending is a term called stochastic terrorism, which is basically saying words as violence. Now, the doppelganger says, quote, sounds like we have a mental illness crisis and not a gun problem, unquote, getting 112 likes, which, again, my 3 cents. Used to be 2 cents, but 40-year hyperinflation, gotta be 3 cents. My 2 cents is, yes, it's all around mental health and getting people the help they need and give them the tools needed to succeed. I don't think it's a coincidence that so many of these people have broken homes, they have a lot of issues with their families, or lack of friends. I mean, it's one of those things where you can blame an inanimate object all you want, but at the end of the day, it's just an inanimate object. It's the evil will find a way, and to me, it's all about, how do we help because some people think you could debate are truly evil, they can't be helped, but I think a lot of people, miss cliches that might sound, just need an extra friend in their life or a little extra help from the family. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, at the end of the day, also another detriment to politics, just giving people extra resources, or talking about self-responsibility or community responsibility or culture responsibility, or having communities or religious affiliations come together to help each other out, to give everyone support, and work together so there's not so many issues, and you don't have individuals feeling angry, being alienated, outlined, being turned into an outlier. That's not an easy way to win votes. You usually have to demonize the other side, turn into an attack on an inanimate object saying guns are evil. Unfortunately, politics seems to be a lot about virtue signaling left and right, as opposed to just actually, taking on things and talking about, what can realistically be done and what's the most effective way to solve the problem. So it'll be interesting to see, let's see here, what the result is at the end of the day in terms of how does this issue long term get solved? And, you know, statistically, is it more likely to be someone of violence? I mean, is it even possible to have an unbiased conversation around this, or is there a way to have the data be? No. I guess if you were to take the statistical data, have the definitions properly defined, but again, so many Americans are also so viscerally, emotionally driven. Could you have a really conductive or constructive conversation? That's another controversy in and of itself. But let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this data, and what do you think will be the long-term outcome. As always, it'll be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, I'm trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of February, so click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, sharing the video is a great way to help us build the audience, and giving a like or thumbs up or thumbs down or comment, great way to give me some additional feedback. Also, lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.